And we are live. Hello, fiends, and welcome to Handle with Scare, presented by the Slashing Cast Podcast Network. Our show discusses horror movies and the phobias that they emphasize. With me tonight, as always, are my co-hosts Holly, Hooch, and John. And guys, here we are at the tail end of our first really mega-sized phobia for aquaphobia. It's been 8 weeks, 2 months as a whole, going into the depths of the abyss and so much more. And, you know, we've hit some of the absolute best that this specific subgenre has to offer. And, you know, we have another bit of a throwback, one that's more of a forgotten one, at least in the late 80s, primarily because it does kind of like take certain aspects from some really heavy hitters, like Aliens, and you know, The Thing. But this is also at a time where there were a lot of like underwater like horror movies coming out, so because of that it kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. But thankfully, you know, with the recent Blu-ray release, you know, a lot of like these premium channels or just streaming services haven't picked it up. More eyes have been able to been brought on to Leviathan, which will be our movie for tonight.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk a little bit about this movie. I'd never seen it before, and as I was trying to pick a movie for my turn, for my rotation, I was looking at those, and I know there's Abyss, there's Deep Six, what's it called?
Deep Star Six.
Deep Star Six, thank you, and then of course Leviathan are the three that kind of are part of the '80s underwater.
Yeah,
you know, movies that came out, and I knew I had a really low rating, but I thought, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna watch it anyway. It sounds like fun, and I watched the trailer after we met last week, and I didn't realize the incredible like stellar cast that it has, and then I got super fucking excited, and then I watched the movie and I fucking loved it, and I think that the only reason this movie has a low rating, it's because it's compared to Alien and The Thing. I mean, if you're going up against the big boys, you're gonna fall short a little bit. And yeah, maybe the monster's a little stupider, but you know, whatever. It's got Peter Weller in it, and that's really important.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, I will say though, like at the end of the day, I think the biggest drawback people have with Leviathan is because it feels like a movie that you've already seen before. But like for me personally, I still enjoy this movie, but I will say once you see the full like monster effect towards the end of the movie, with the way that the lighting was, it did this movie a huge disservice for the actual creature effects in the movie. Had it been more darkly lit, I don't think people would have been as harsh on Leviathan as they have been over the years. But, you know, you mentioned the overall ratings. I know, like, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's still, like 14% or something ridiculous. But, like, on IMDb, it's posted at, like, a 7.5. So there's definitely a disconnect from when it came out versus where it's sitting at now. But all in all, like, yes, all-star cast, really. You know, some interesting plot points,
right?
But you know, there was one other B movie that came out around the same time from Roger Corman, which was Lords of the Deep, which was also in similar fashion to the other movies that you would have listed as well.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one.
Lords of the Deep sounds kind of good too.
Is it an underwater station movie similar to this one?
Well, it also came out in 1989, so you know, you have 4 different like underwater movies all coming out.
Yeah, this one is definitely alien underwater for sure, but The Thing too, with a splash of The Thing.
Yeah, and like I said, the monster is fairly disappointing, but and it's disappointing in a couple of different ways, which is hilarious.
And that'll get more towards the end,
sure,
the third act, because really, like in fairness, the monster, some of the forms of the monster are pretty cool early on in the movie.
The snaky part,
yeah, like and the sort of The Thing
the
mutant version where we see the
face
guy,
or
the
something,
two,
or-
no, not even the face, the two people melded together.
That's
which,
Six Pack and Bridget.
Yeah, which I feel like was kind of the best form of the monster.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's still a little further down from the beginning. But yeah, no, it's like, we'll get to it, but the third act is a little bit saggy. But
let's get to the beginning though. Right?
Yeah, but we'll start at the beginning.
So, do we want to do a quick little run through of the synopsis, or just go like scene by scene? What would you like to do today, T?
Well, I mean, the basic premise, we have Leviathan following it, which is this underwater mining crew who discover this sunken Russian ship, Leviathan. So while they investigate this shipwreck, they unknowingly unleash this gene-mutating virus that begins to absorb the victims into kind of like a hybrid human marine life monster. So, obviously, like, the creature effects in this movie are hit and miss. They were done by Stan Winston Studio, who drew a lot of inspiration from the marine wildlife as well as, like, different medical books. And, much like in The Thing, the monster had the ability to assimilate, its victims. And, basically what would happen is you would have, like, these human body parts combined with the anatomy of different kinds of deep-sea marine life out there. So, as we mentioned, it's basically, The Thing just set underwater. Obviously, there's still a lot of, like, claustrophobia type, like, corridors and stuff very similar to what you would expect from Alien. So, you kind of got the best of both worlds to a varying degree. But, of course, you have one of the mining crew members beginning to mutate, and they start to kill one another, and then they sort of, like, merge, so all of a sudden you have, like, 3 or 4 different bodies combined into, like, all of these other creature elements over the course of the movie. But I have to say, the way that we get to the gene mutation, I laughed so hard the first time I saw this movie because, of course, you have the whole ordeal where he fought, like, you have the Russian vodka as, like, a major plot device.
Yeah.
And then
the
flask, yeah.
Well, first of all, like, early in the movie, they kind of introduce all the characters, and it's that formula of The Thing and Alien where each character kind of has their specific trait that's to them, and it's like they have to, like, have the guy who's like the jerk character. I forget what his name is. The guy from Home Alone.
Something Stern.
Six.
Yeah, and he's famous because this is an all-star cast. Pretty much everybody in this movie practically is famous. That guy, though, I have to say, he was so
over
unlikable.
The top, yeah.
It was like he was clearly meant to be like. I kept thinking this was the role that's meant for. Of course, I just blanked on his name, but the guy from Aliens and Weird Science. Game over, man.
Wait,
no, not Paul Reiser. Game over, man. And he's in Weird Science. And he died recently. But clearly, I don't know, now my point doesn't make any sense. But this is clearly meant for him. I'm going to have
He has to look it up. All right.
You're thinking of Bill
Paxton.
Oh, yeah, Bill Paxton. Oh, he just died?
He's the Bill Paxton character, except not as likable as Bill Paxton. No. Bill Paxton can be the asshole and still be likable.
Because he's kind of cute. He looks like the boy next door, whereas Home Alone guy just kind of looks like a scumbag a little bit.
Sorry, he's kind of sleazy looking.
Yeah, a little sleazy looking. But I love how every time they were in the mess hall, like, it's like every sexual harassment video you've seen. Training at your office. I'm like, that's my office. I mean, that's my office video.
He was aggressively harassing.
I know, and the ladies just took it. I was like,
and then he would, like, bully all the guys.
Oh my god, that's right.
And
he needed to be stopped.
But it was funny too because early on he plays that trick. On the one woman, he gets that spider thing from the water and puts it.
That was a nasty trick too.
But then she does the same. She puts it in his thing, and he completely loses
I know.
it.
That
It's
was
like-
very upsetting. Where you're like, oh, you're supposed to at least go, ha ha, you got me. Okay, I'll stop. Not like, oh, I'm gonna hit you now.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
holy
He seemed to
shit.
want to go out. He was like trying to get to her, and, like attack her. It was like, oh my god.
The future astronaut. I was like, okay, I like that.
I mean, he was trying to get physical with her one way or the
Yeah,
other.
exactly.
You know, it just took a different direction.
Very like, yeah, that was like of its time, very much. Well, and even like, even Bill Paxton's character in the second Aliens movie, he's sleazy towards the women, but not like as aggressively sleazy as this guy is. Again, like
Because
Bill
I mean,
Paxton.
like, he humps one of. I mean, not a lot, but like she's trying to pass him or something, and he's like, you know, basically full body up against her, and I was like, holy shit! Somebody say something, please.
So somebody call HR.
And then like Ernie Hudson, I forget his name in the movie, but he actually like he looked like he buffed up a lot, like from Ghostbusters. But like I was like, you're like twice the size, do something. Instead he's just like, ugh, I hate that guy. And I'm like, Jesus, come on, guys.
Yeah, yeah. But they kind of early on establish all the different characters. And,
Yeah. So you don't feel so bad when he gets, you know, all the bad things that happen to him. Which is true. I didn't feel so bad.
And I was comparing this because I had thought this movie might be a rip off of The Abyss, but it came out the same year as The Abyss.
It could still be the case though, right?
Right, because studios know what each other are doing and working on it. And that was, The Abyss was a huge movie that even for those couple of years before it, people knew he was making that movie. And I kind of suspect that, like, they may have been aware of some elements of The Abyss, but not everything, obviously. And so they were kind of like, even though this movie is The Thing and Alien, I feel like there is, I don't know how much they knew, but there's some stuff that actually lines up pretty closely with The Abyss, which is actually surprising. But the Russian craft is similar because there's a similar plot point in Abyss where there's a downed Russian submarine, and they find, I think, nuclear weapons on the submarine.
Of its
which
time
is different.
too, yeah.
But and then this movie has the downed Russian boat that has the experiments on it, which is very similar. The way they kind of set up that boat.
Excuse me.
The way they kind of set up
Pick
that
up your brain.
boat and going over there is reminiscent of The Thing when they find that Norwegian camp and they go and they find all this, you know, all the stuff at the Norwegian camp and what happened there with that creature. But yeah, as you say, this creature though was hiding in the flask of vodka.
Yeah, that was interesting how they made that work. But
I guess it's just a single cell. Well, they they say that they did that on purpose. The Russians did that on purpose
because they want to
infect the
experiment.
people.
Yeah, exactly. But then they, you know, disabled or destroyed their own ship, their own vessel, so it wouldn't come back. So was it not? It wasn't an accident, but then they weren't prepared for what was going to happen.
It makes me. I just realized because I wasn't thinking closely. It just makes me realize though that what they did essentially, which is kind of silly or stupid, is that these Russian scientists on this boat, they sort of infected the crew to see what would happen
In close quarters, underwater with them.
Right. Well, and of course, all hell broke loose, and then everybody got killed. But it's like, wouldn't they just
Put him in a lab
have people that they
behind
experiment on?
bars? Yeah.
Wouldn't
Like puppies and whatnot.
It seems kind of bad to experiment on the crew of the ship that are manning the boat that you're on.
And if it's in a flask, it's not like they found it down there, so they took him down there to experiment on
No,
them?
it's a boat, but it sank because of the
Oh, I
issues.
see. Okay.
It wasn't like an underwater
Thank
facility.
you, because for a second there I was like, wait a minute.
It's not totally clear because you never really see the Russian boat fully. You just see like
Parts, yeah.
the part with the lettering on it and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and then I was gonna say I compared it a little bit to was it just called Deep Sea, the one with Kristen What's her face?
Underwater.
Underwater. So Underwater had a really nice way of creating a claustrophobia, or just like that, not claustrophobia, that fear of not having enough oxygen, which I guess some people feel that when they have claustrophobia.
Yeah.
But that fear of about to die because of not having enough oxygen. And I noticed that Leviathan has that moment at the very early, in the beginning, with the one crew member. Shoot, I forget his name. But he, his suit is malfunctioning, and he's about to die. Jesus, or something like that.
Yeah. De Jesus.
And they rush him in, and they save him and all that. But it was, and I did get a little sense of like, oh no. But in Deep Sea, like, that was huge.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job. Underwater. Underwater. And then additionally, I found myself just comparing the tech, basically, is what we're getting at, right? Like, they had just better special effects. Although maybe you can recreate that feeling without a lot of special effects. But that's, I don't know about that. I shouldn't be so judgmental.
This movie being a bit more low budget, it felt more
25 million, though.
Yeah.
I guess 10 of those is just for the cast, right?
And being older, too.
That's true.
I'm sure most of that money went to the cast. Peter Weller and, But
the guy for Pretty Woman.
But this movie definitely felt more like you were on sets. Like, it didn't feel totally
The Underwater
convincing.
didn't exactly look like Underwater. And I spent a lot of time...
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't.
But I mean, neither was the other movie that we were just talking about, whose name I can't seem to... Deep... Underwater. Well, I mean, Underwater did a really good job in, like, making it look that way, right? And in this one, because I was comparing it... Because, I mean, they had so many similar scenes in that they're working underwater, and they're working on these gigantic pipes and whatnot. They have so many similar scenes that I found myself comparing the tech, and they had that whole effect of like tiny little like particles, to try to make it look like water. And then but then I just found myself looking for bubbles. I was always looking for bubbles.
There were no bubbles in this movie.
There were only bubbles when there were close-ups of work being done.
Okay.
So they'd be like a cut to, we're drilling into this, and then there's bubbles. But anywhere else, there were no bubbles.
You can definitely tell that some of those shots, there were some good miniature shots where it was like the work facility, but you could really tell that those shots were just like, they put a blue filter on the lights, and they put some smoke in the air, and then just filmed in.
Which is fine. I mean, that's what you're going to do. That's what you got to do. And I mean, we're comparing it to a movie that is like freaking like 40 years later, so, or a little under that, but still it's.
But it does make me wonder, though, completely nitpicking, but it does kind of make me wonder, like, if you're making Leviathan, this is also kind of why I guess it's Underwater was kind of the thing at that time, and maybe The Abyss influenced it, but it feels like it's easier just to set it in outer space. And then you can just have your star backgrounds, and you don't really have to do much.
Yeah.
Making it convincing underwater, I think, is much more difficult than outer space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be something trying to get cameras down.
Which The Abyss did not fake it. They famously spent tons of money to film underwater for real in big tanks.
Nice.
But I would also compare, since you're bringing up Underwater, just to make a quick comparison. We talked about this also when we talked about Underwater, but Underwater just forgoes all of that setup. Like, all of that kind of typical, standard, like, tropey introduction of the characters and their various personalities and all that. Underwater just said, you've already seen these movies. Yeah. We're not even going to do that. We're just going to jump right into the parts you want to see with the action. And
you had to pick up on it from, like, clues throughout the movie, which I thought was much better.
Yeah. But this movie, I mean...
we're immediately in the danger zone.
But in fairness, this is an 80s movie, so they did that very, very kind of typical thing of like, each character has their one trait that kind of defines them, It's like the Jesus guy, he got a lot of attention right in the beginning,
and then
with his part, and then he just faded away.
I thought he was going to be a bigger character, and then he got like and then he was a little like I guess didn't they make him like superstitious or something?
He had something going on.
And I was
like,
but I guess like this isn't a cruise, although like the mixture of the crew is kind of interesting. So we've got they're drilling for minerals, right?
Silver, right?
Silver. That's right.
Yeah,
and
silver.
With the Tri-Ocean Corporation, and their supervisor Meg Foster, who honestly I love her. You just can't lose with those evil eyes she's got. They're pretty great.
Yeah.
But so we've got she put a geologist down there.
Yeah. Peter Weller,
who would have otherwise not been there. And then you've got somebody trained to be an astronaut, which was kind of neat. I dug that. And then you got I can't remember what Ernie Hudson was supposed to be doing or what kind of his background was, other than just like, tech dude like Bridget and Six Pack, and then GP. That was the guy from Pretty Woman, Hector Elion.
Yeah.
And then you've got Doc, who's supposed to be a renowned scientist who somehow has like a dark background, like he did some shit, which I love those characters. Yeah. I really love those characters. I'm like, oh, I'm the top of my fucking blah, 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 but also I have a debilitating, vice, and now I have to work with you numbnuts. So
I have to say, though, it was a little bit weird how they made a big point in the beginning of the movie where they needed him and he wasn't around. Mm-hmm. And then he jokingly said he was like playing golf or whatever.
Yeah.
But they never really resolved that. And then that never quite played. I mean, he ended up having kind of a dark past, but it was like, and again, maybe I'm nitpicking, but it's kind of like, well, why wasn't he there? Like, what was he doing? Because he obviously wasn't playing golf. He was kidding. But was he like taking drugs or like sleeping and just didn't care?
I think it was the sleeping part because he
was
didn't.
He sleeping,
well,
probably?
I mean, they don't say that now that I think about it. I don't think so.
They don't explain it.
And he doesn't seem like he has a drug addiction. They didn't have any clues for that. So I'm thinking the only clue is that he just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he just kind of didn't care.
Like he's just there for a paycheck, and he didn't think anything was going to go wrong.
Yeah.
So he didn't show up. But he's supposed to be everybody's security blanket because at the end of the day, he wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway. He's a doctor, not a fucking suit tech.
Yeah.
So they would have gone through the whole thing, but they still called for him.
Yeah,
for some reason.
Although that's true. Yeah, but that's a good point though, because what was he going to do to help? Because that guy's suit was decompressing or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's not his fucking field of expertise.
But I don't know what the doctor could have done remotely.
Breathe slower. Relax.
Well, yeah, it was also the fact that he didn't want to work overnight because they were basically speeding up the mission because they were really on the final days before they ventured out initially when they found the
Which,
shipwreck.
by the way, the speeding up the mission for the pickup is another direct plot point from The Abyss, where one of the big things in that movie is that they're going to get picked up at a certain time above the water, and they can't because there's a hurricane going on.
Another hurricane. Underwater hurricane.
It actually had that similar plot point of the pickup and the storm happening above.
I hate to admit it, but I haven't seen The Abyss either.
Really?
I know!
Oh, man.
But okay, so was the hurricane real? Because I know that in this movie it
wasn't real.
It wasn't real, yeah.
In the other one, I believe it was real. I believe. Yeah.
All right.
But I think it was caused by the aliens or something weird, like a spoiler. But no, that's a good movie. You should definitely see that.
I watched it tonight.
But anyways, what were we saying? Oh, the doctor. So Richard Crenna, who's kind of a big, he's like fantastic. A TV actor from the 80s.
Everybody was wonderful. I love this cast.
And the one woman who I can't place, I didn't look her up, but the brunette woman with the British accent. I know
astronaut?
I know I've seen her in a lot of other stuff, but I can't think of what
I didn't recognize her at all. And maybe she looks different in the other things that she does, but
I think she's been in some other kind of movies of this style, like B sci-fi stuff.
It didn't bug me that she was like a very attractive person that was like training to be an astronaut, just like an all-around like overachiever. Because the other like young astronauts that I've seen like in magazines and shit, I'm like, they're pretty fucking hot. You know, they work out. And they study the sciences. It's like, oh, those people are grade A.
Well, I remember, I'm not sure if I'm remembering this exactly right, but there was a weird thing where someone was giving her crap about being like an astronaut.
Because she wasn't drinking, maybe?
Well, no, but it had something to do with like, I can't remember, but there was a weird thing where it was like, well, it does make sense that she could aspire to be an astronaut by like training to be on this underwater facility because it's kind of the same idea.
I dug it.
But I have some weird memory of one of the characters being like, one of the other characters being like, oh, it doesn't make any sense like why you want to be an astronaut when you work down here. And I just remember thinking, yeah, it does actually.
Money and like the experience of being isolated and shit.
I think
Poor assholes that might harass her.
It was probably Six Pack who was probably
fucking Six Pack. I'm glad he got eaten.
That jerk. I know. I'm glad he died.
I'm glad he died.
I'm glad he got turned.
Yeah, he definitely got his comeuppance. I will say, I did enjoy the deep dive suits in this one, and what I thought was interesting is you basically had suits made for basically all of the lead actors in this movie. You had one that was also retrofit to every actor as well. And, I'm really curious to, know, how heavy those suits were. Because obviously, there's a lot to them. And they probably tried to, make them as light as they could. But I'm sure that was a bitch to, carry around on the set. Because, you have, that old style, mechanical underwater dive suit. They were big. They were bulky. But one of the things that I really liked about just the overall design was, they had these bellows at the bottom of the feet so that whenever an actor had stepped down, it would, squirt air. So you would kind of have, that ground dust particle effect where it, poofs out on the camera, which was pretty cool. But, as we mentioned, only a handful of scenes in this movie were actually shot underwater. You had the production basically going for that dry for wet look, which is basically this technique where you use a mixture of smoke, colored filters, and lighting effects to give the effect of being underwater while you're filming on a dry stage. And, outside of that, they also use, fans in slow motion being used to make, the hair and clothing, things like that, appear to, float in the current. But, all in all, you compare it to some of the other similar films. And obviously there's a pretty distinct difference based on the overall visuals when you do compare it to something like The Abyss, which was shot underwater. And I'm not going to say it greatly takes you away compared to, some of the counterparts. But when you're mimicking so much from things that we have seen already, it really makes it a lot harder for you to stand out amongst the pack, when it was a very busy year specifically for this subgenre. So that's why, throughout all the years, this one is, I'm not gonna say been completely disregarded, but it's not given the same amount of attention as The Abyss has, which I honestly do not think will ever get The Abyss out on Blu-ray because, James Cameron wants to make 1,800 Avatar movies, and we've seen how long the fucking post-production takes on
Is
those.
it still not out on Blu-ray? Wow. I'm kind of not surprised, because am I mistaken, is for some reason, True Lies just popped in my head, which I believe also doesn't have a Blu-ray release yet. Is that James Cameron as well?
That's right.
Yeah. Which is weird, because Abyss and True Lies are huge movies with huge followings. It's kind of strange that he hasn't done a Blu-ray release this far into the lifespan of Blu-ray.
True Lies has a huge following?
Yeah, I mean, it's got its fans. I
would consider myself a fan, but not a lot.
It was a big hit.
Jamie Lee Curtis was really great in it, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is America's sweetheart.
His standard thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's the thing about this movie is the budget, it's it does a good job of being fairly looking like a higher budget movie than it is in the first half of it. But I feel that the cracks start to kind of show in the second half and the third act of the movie.
A little bit, yeah.
A lot with the creature, but It can't. If it came out the same year as Abyss, I don't know how close it came out to The Abyss, but I would imagine as soon as The Abyss was released, people just stopped going to Leviathan. You know what I mean? It's like...
Oh, because, I mean, wasn't Abyss like 88?
I checked it, I thought they came out the same...
It was August 9th,
Oh, shit,
1989.
same year.
Yeah.
Damn, Leviathan never stood a chance.
That's the thing, it would have gotten swallowed up
Yeah.
by the Abyss, no pun intended. But,
I like that one.
it definitely would have... Did Deep Star 6 come out at the same time, or was that a different year?
All right, I'm looking them all up really quick. Leviathan was March 17th, 1989. And Deep Star 6 was January
89?
15th.
And The Abyss was when?
Yes, they were all 89. The Abyss was August 9th.
August. So March.
So it was the late. The Abyss was
So
the later of the three.
To
Leviathan
do
being the
its
middle.
thing, but Deep Star 6 was the beginning of the year, so it would have taken some attention away.
Yeah.
So Leviathan cost $25 million to make, and it only made back like 15.3. But I think that might be domestically, because I think I saw another number for like Italy for like another 3.6 million. So either way, though, I mean, at best, it might have made its money back over the fucking long haul, which of course isn't what people want to invest in.
But yeah, it's also probably oversaturation. Like people probably. Plus, you would know.
I'm like thinking so hard right now. I'm like,
you would have known that The Abyss was coming out soon, and that it was going to be a big James Cameron movie.
Right. Lots of
so
money.
I think a lot of people might have just seen ads for Leviathan and Deep Star 6 and kind of been like, whatever, like we could go see The Abyss. But also word of mouth probably didn't help Leviathan once people kind of got through the whole thing.
Damn,
maybe.
monster. Well, who was the production company again that did the special effects for the monster?
Stan.
What was it?
Stan Winston.
Oh, for this one?
And what are they famous for?
He did, what's he most famous for? For some reason, the movie that's popping into my head is Pumpkinhead, which is not what he's famous for.
Pretty good,
but Pumpkinhead looks great. He
did Jurassic Park, Aliens, the Thing.
Predator,
Shit, he's got
Predator.
a huge
he's like one of the big people in the special effects world.
Shit. Oh, that sucks, because this monster was not great. Even, like, the psychological horror side of the monster was not good. It was like, hey, I'm going to scare you. Look at your friend. It's just not effective.
It was also his company, so I kind of have a feeling he probably did not work on it himself.
Because Predator was earlier and Jurassic Park later, but... Yeah. I'm willing to bet that he was front and center with Jurassic Park for sure, but because I mean, one of my biggest, and I know we're not there yet with the monster, but I have to, how like they try to get rid of the body and one arm or one little limb, one big old limb, ends up surviving the
leg.
Which incidentally, they didn't get rid of it; they just shipped it out.
Yeah,
into
they just
the water.
put it in the ocean.
That shit could be fucking like multiplying. Yeah, swallowing up fucking fishies and shit.
Yeah, no, totally.
So, but my point being, like, there's this weird limb that's like crawling around the
leg.
I was gonna say spaceship, crawling around the vessel, and it's just so not intimidating. It's just like, did anybody try kicking it? Like, that's all I could think about. I was like, kick it, smash it. But then, of course, later it feeds, and then it like multiplies, and it has those little like snake thingies, which is pretty great. But even then, they were kind of cute because they had like the short, rounded nose, like your face
with the teeth.
That made me think of. Feed Me Seymour, Little Shop of Horrors a little bit. Like there was a slight cuteness to the fucking creature to the point where I was like, well, now I don't know who to root for.
Well, and so early on when they find the vodka flask and Six Pack steals it to drink on his own. And then what's her name?
Bridget.
Bridget finds him, and they both have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they have like the one artistic shot. This movie is shot very like straightforward way, but they have like the one artistic shot, and then when they drink out of the flask, and you see the reflection of her face in the flask, and it gets all distorted, weird looking, and I was like, ooh, foreshadowing. And, this is
That's
like
pretty neat, yeah.
Where the bad stuff is going to happen.
Oh, she was very much so a tragic character, and like, why couldn't Bridget make it? I guess she couldn't have. But I really appreciated the progression of the first, like, it's a disease that turns into a monster movie that turns into a body horror, which I enjoyed. Like, fuck it, yeah, give me all the fucking genres, give me all the tropes.
Yeah, they get like a rash at first,
and then there was this one scene where he's like scratching his rash like full strength, and they've already put like synthetic skin on his arm, and it looks like he's about to rip away the skin. And I know it was kind of fakey looking, but I really liked the fact that he was going at it so hard that he was about to rip his arm open, and I was like, ooh, it was great. It was a good sensation.
Yeah, it was reminiscent of like the cabin fever,
scratch so hard,
like shaving scene.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that they were something was gonna kind of happen there where he was gonna
like it was gonna rip open. I thought they were gonna come back to that, and then we're gonna see a ripped open arm, because why would you put fake skin on an arm if you weren't going to rip it up? Although I guess they did later. Remember, like, they could see inside of it.
Yeah.
But they didn't show...
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They do have kind of the thing where...
But another thing that was... It didn't bother me, but I noticed it multiple times, is that... Well, I guess you wouldn't see death scenes because they're not really dead, but you should see the last gasp of their humanity leaving them. That's something that they didn't. I mean, that's a huge part of these movies, right? Where you see somebody turn, like, human to zombie, or like, or them fighting that, or them just like, letting go. And you never got to see any of those in any, like, for example, with Six Pack, he goes from scratching a bunch to just being on a table declared dead. And then you see things moving on him and shit like that. And then with Bridget, you see the implications of her suicide. Because you never have to they don't show it like her slitting. No, or I can't remember what
they show it after they find it.
Yeah, exactly. So they never show that. So it was like, those are two huge scenes that could have like been really heavy, intense, like, additions to the movie.
Yeah. Which
I would have appreciated seeing, I mean, and these are all really good actors. I mean, like, they would have fucking like killed the shit out of it. I thought.
Yeah. They kind of went for that the Thing. They were kind of imitating The Thing at that point in the movie, with the like them kind of slowly transforming and mutating slightly.
I guess it maintains the mystery, right, of how the creature is getting them all. But at this point, there isn't much mystery, because for those two, because it was somehow imbibed in their fucking singular cellular form, or whatever you want to call it, like the liquid form of the monster, there wouldn't have been a big, like, it would have been just them developing a disease and dying from it. So they could have shown that, and it would have been like an additional gruesome.
And that was my favorite form of the monster, was
the rash.
Was when the two were kind of were kind of fused together, and they had the sheet over him, and when they pulled it back, he was like on his stomach, and they were kind of half very
sensual.
And at first I was like, because I had seen the movie a long time ago, but completely forgot it. And then I read a couple of things where they talked about how the monster at the end is kind of a disappointment. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when I was rewatching it and I came to that part, I was like, oh, but this monster is actually cool. That's actually really good. And I didn't realize, like, that was not the final form of the monster. But I kind of felt like I wish it had been, because that was really, like, the best, I think, of the makeup effects.
But then that wasn't it couldn't have been, well, I can see how it wouldn't have been the final form, because it wasn't a super effective monster.
Yeah, it couldn't really do much.
Because unless you walk into its fucking room, like, he's not going to do much. And I guess I should say they, because it's plural at this point. But I did like that they were all melded together and it was all like a horror scene.
Yeah.
That was neat. That was neat.
I always laugh though when you get to the scene where the doctor wants Peter Weller
put a
to
mask
take
on.
a look at the rash on his back, and he's like, but I'm not a doctor. Oh,
That's
you don't
fucked
need to
up.
be a doctor
Just for you to
to,
see how fucked up that is.
to look
You
at
don't need to be
this.
a doctor to see how fucked up it is. But then he gives him a mask. He's like, "Is it contagious?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Get in there. Get real close. Give it a little."
I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
I know, totally.
Take
I
a
remember
chance.
thinking, like, this is
this
weirdly
isn't safe at all.
irresponsible. This is really irresponsible.
But I guess that's in keeping with his character.
But also, like, I had another of those moments of, like, when I think it's Peter Weller, he's, like, right up on that creature when it's on the hospital bed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had one of those moments of nobody in real life would ever do that. You would never, and I think he touches it at one point too. If you saw that in real life, you would keep like a 4 or 5 foot distance at least. You'd be standing
You would
back.
be like pressing up against the walls, like backing out.
And you wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, so
You would have one of those extended arms.
Exactly.
And
And
that would have been more. Although maybe that was to show how courageous this geologist RoboCop is. Buckaroo Banzai. Oh, he's so cool.
But and then the doctor, I think it's around that time, also says something that was really funny and weird and like way too early in the movie, where he's like, "Oh, this could be an amazing discovery because we could create people who could breathe underwater and work underwater." Remember that?
And work underwater. Jesus.
And I was like, first of all, like, it's way too early in all of this to even know what this effect it's having
You're
on a
way
person.
too like optimistic right now.
I know.
Yeah, and second of all,
I know exactly.
You're
it's just
already
like
working
we can create
underwater.
a race of mermen with this.
It's so sad to think like we could have this amazing ability in humans so they can work. Like for fuck's sake, can I take even a mutation? I can't fucking have a vacation. Jesus.
Nope, you're going to slave away until you die.
But and that was just way too early, and it was kind of a thing with the Alien, where it was kind of like Alien, or the second Aliens movie, where the corporation wants to get a hold of an alien. But in that movie, it makes more sense because the corporation wants to get a hold of the alien to use as a possible weapon, which makes sense because you just unleash it on your enemies.
But how did? Yes, and it's a sci-fi movie, so yes. But then it's like that's such a huge leap.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, to think of a bunch of amoral asshole executives in a room that went from talking about mining silver to talking about, hey man, I found something really weird down there. It's killing everyone. What if we weaponized and we brought it up here? Like, it's just I'm part of corporate America, and I feel like I've never had a conversation that could ever lead in that direction. You know what I mean? Like, that's so fucking insane.
And what makes it worse too, though, is just the fact that the Russians didn't want it to surface.
Yeah, no.
So we are no better than they are.
And Putin didn't want it, for fuck's sake.
Because they do want to bring it up, and the Russians specifically tried to hide it and get rid of it. But
was Putin in power already, or I know he was in the KGB before.
No, that was, I think, what's his name?
Gorbachev.
Gorbachev, yeah, at that point. Yeah.
Cold War shit.
Post Rocky 3.
Oh, yeah.
When Rocky won the Russian people over to love America. Have you seen Rocky 3?
Yeah, I've seen Rocky 3, but I didn't realize that, that was a surprise.
Rocky healed the divide between Russia and America.
Sylvester Stallone, he's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to get new appreciation for all of the old 80s action movie stars.
Yeah.
And how, actually they're... I mean, this isn't the right movie to talk about it, but I just, they were really impressive dudes. And I like you think they're so silly because all they do is like the shoot 'em up movies, but
And it's really just the two, right? Like
Sylvester
Sylvester Stallone
Stallone,
and Schwarzenegger.
I mean, there's
they're the
Jean-Claude Van
kings.
Damme, but because he's from Belgium, I guess he didn't get as much attention. But he was really hot for a few years in the 90s.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I mean, I thought so. And, I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, there's Steven Seagal, but he was always kind of silly with a stupid little ponytail.
Yeah. Now, really, Stallone and Schwarzenegger were
They're the
kings
top.
of the
They're
80s.
the kings.
But Peter Weller, I mean, he's RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop.
I mean, that's pretty
cool.
And Buckaroo Banzai, as you mentioned.
But that's more like cult classic.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Although, if I had to pick up my favorite Peter Weller, it'd be Buckaroo Banzai.
And it is sort of weird. It is sort of weird, the movie, sort of, on one hand, it feels very science-y, where it's almost like on one hand, it feels like it's a science vessel doing sciencey stuff, but then on the other hand, it's meant to be a mining facility that's just miners, and they're kind of like very blue collar, like the first Alien movie where they're like truckers in space, and this is sort of like
truckers in space. You just really cheapened that movie. Truckers in space.
But and this is sort of like miners underwater, basically.
Is. But earlier in the conversation, I was trying to argue why it was so mixed, but then it's like, oh yeah, it's a mining expedition.
Right.
And the fact that they had a geologist was supposed to be a big deal. But then that doesn't explain the astronaut. But again, She wasn't an astronaut, she was an aspiring astronaut. So they would have gotten somebody with a lot of brains for cheap.
But that's the weird thing, right? Is that it's a work facility that's supposedly kind of like very much a mining facility, work facility. So on one hand, it is sort of like weird. I don't know. It's a weird sort of. I don't think they had that all sorted.
They
out
haven't sold it. It's not sold to us clearly why there was that few number of people, why was that mix of people, and how it was all going to work out. Because, I mean, like, I also had objections to it, but then it's like, it's futuristic sci-fi. Where the fuck do I know how many people it takes to mine silver in the bottom of the ocean?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in deep sea, it was the deep.
Underwater.
It was not that many. No, but that explosion, there was a huge explosion that killed a bunch of people.
Right.
So then you didn't have to think about how many people were there initially.
Yeah. We don't even know, technically. There could have been a lot of people that
like the Death Star. There's like 1,000 contractors.
Yeah, exactly. But, so, the monster gets... what happens after the hospital?
Okay, so they meld.
Oh!
They meld and then they take him to
They take him to throw him in the ocean.
Yeah.
So... That was actually kind of fun. I kind of liked the part where they were...
Something's moving.
Yeah, they're moving. It's moving. He's not dead.
Oh, that was good. I was like, don't open it. Yeah.
But I felt like... But at the same time, it felt kind of wacky that they... It's like, just tell everyone what's going on. Why are you trying to keep it secret at this point? It's more dangerous to keep it a secret.
To show them, I'd be like, yep, burn it with fire.
It's also a little bit like Return of the Living Dead. With the body bag that's moving, and the mortician's like, wait, it's moving. Like, you can't just burn them alive.
And and then that's how we.
Yeah.
Well,
and then that's how we live with like
multiple
fucking
body
GP,
bags.
who's like, the pretty woman butler. Nah, he's not a butler. He's a concierge at a fancy, which is like a butler. He's a.
But yes, but throwing them out in the ocean is like...
Yeah, that wasn't fixing shit.
That's not the solution.
That's just like that's Poseidon's problem now.
Plus, as we know from what happens, I mean, they didn't know this at the time, but...
It just absorbs organisms and shit.
Yeah, and not to jump to the end, but this movie shouldn't have the happy ending that it has, because this creature is freely breeding and replicating under the ocean at the end of that movie.
because there's multiple versions of it.
Yeah,
the one that we saw was just the small arm. I mean, do we know that it can't breathe underwater because it mutated?
It's an underwater creature.
Sorta.
I mean, it was like a fish monster at the end.
But where was it? A fish
it can breathe
monster?
Underwater for sure.
Well, there you
and
go.
it kind of the snaky ones are kind of eel-like. Oh, which also reminded me of another great.
But where does that come from? That means that in the flask, in those microscopic.
It's like a fish.
It's already a fish monster.
It's like yeah. I mean, essentially, it's like a tiny single cell, multi-cell tadpole little or tiny little microscopic creature that's like a sea creature
that's already like, you know, Cthulhu-ish.
That wants to mutate whatever it touches, apparently.
Which isn't a bad premise.
Into being a sea creature. It's sort of similar to the beach house in a lot of ways too. Where it's
It's why they tell you not to drink the worm when you're having tequila.
Like Poltergeist 2. Oh. Because we all see what happens. Exactly.
Might alter your DNA and you might mutate.
So technically, the creature that the six-pack that they threw out into the ocean, he should be out there kind of.
And it's much bigger than the thing that was left over, than the arm that was just kind of like flopping around that nobody kicked when they had an opportunity.
And really, as you said, a leg being the thing that survives and runs around in the station is sort of a weird choice.
Yeah, because it didn't really inspire any feelings really, other than like stomp it.
But also, it's like that. I mean, I know it's a mutant creature, but like at least if it's an arm with a hand attached, it can kind of crawl around with its fingers and grab you and stuff. But like a foot, it's like gonna hop around. Like, or kick you or something.
Hello, my dad. Okay.
But it pretty quickly turns into a creature. But I did love, I don't know if it was the six-pack creature or where it happened, but there was that great shot where he was reaching out with his arm and there was a mouth in the palm of his hand.
That was GP, wasn't it?
Was that her? Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like when GP gets scratched by the creature as they're trying to get rid of it, which that's all it took, just a little scratch. The rules are so ambiguous as to how this fucking monster multiplies, right?
Yeah.
Oh my dear fucking God. So anyways, he scratches GP, who again, the butler from Pretty Woman, and he is turning, and then he's fighting the doctor, right? And then that's when he does the hand thing, and then he's got the chompers on the hand. And then the other two just fucking leave the doctor. I always thought like, okay, Ernie Hudson, you've got so many muscles. Why not fucking use them? But no, he never uses his muscles.
Yeah, he doesn't do a lot in the movie.
I mean, he does plenty as his character, but like the fact that he's like this bulky, strong dude, I'm like, really? You didn't like fight anyone. You didn't pry anybody away from anybody. Like, it's just a waste. Even the hot chick made out with Peter Weller.
Oh yeah, they kind of that was
out of nowhere.
A little bit of a forced romance.
Yeah.
And they played the like really romantic music when they had that discussion.
They had one romantic scene, which was the scene dropped a couple of cues, right? So the romantic scene that they had, which I can't quite remember what part of the movie it was early on before the monster, clearly. But it was something like, oh, you're here, I don't know, something about how like there was a little bit of history, but not too much. But then by the end, they were full on making out. We're going to get married kind of shit.
It felt forced. It felt like they did it out of obligation because back then you had to have
some sort of romantic,
thing.
And if you got to force a romance
for the ladies,
bonsai, I don't know what's wrong with you.
I mean, women won't go
for the ladies.
Well, this was well before there was like 90 Day Fiance, and it lines up perfectly with this because the job was 3 months.
I mean,
no, that's not that long, really.
Ultimately, that's only like a third of a baby.
It makes you,
Yeah, go
I
to
think in
the
the other
would have been a
movies,
lot
like The
lengthier.
Abyss, they're on their things for a lot longer. I think Abyss they were under the water for a lot longer.
It makes sense 3 months if it's just like a mining expedition, like it's like like oil rigging and shit. I mean, I actually don't know how long people go on oil rigs for, but I'm willing to bet that it's about the same between 3 and 6 months. Like it's just
like where you're there
enough where you're not there to get fucking crazy, and then they have to deal with your psychological issues that they created in you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And deep sea, I'm willing to bet that. I mean,
Underwater.
these are. No. I'm talking about the literal deep of the sea.
Oh yeah.
And the deep of the sea, like that's got to be particularly aggravating to people. Although I'm a scaredy cat. I don't know that. I don't know if there's other people who are like, no big deal. I got this.
Well, I mean, you're definitely isolated in a small space for a long time.
But then psychologically, the idea that you can't leave at all, like that's really rough. I mean, the fact that you can't just like walk out of there and just do your own fucking thing or drive away or swim, you know, you can't even swim away. So yeah, it's...
Wait, what is that called? For some reason, I'm totally
blanking. Fear?
The fear of small spaces. Like
claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. Yeah. Does that... Did this movie at all give you any kind of claustrophobic feeling?
You can't leave.
Not really. No.
Not really.
Yeah.
Like I definitely felt it a lot more in Alien than this one. But that's already because like that was like a first time experience, whereas with this,
but
like
plus,
I've already
this movie I feel like doesn't really even try to give you that feeling. Like
no.
I don't know that there's anything in this movie where they're
not conscious
where they try to make you feel like, oh my god,
they should have though. But
we're under all this water and we could flood. We're
the
trapped.
Only the only indication of that was just the whole faulty suit, but none of the whole the pressing danger of being in a completely hostile environment.
Right.
Because and which is too bad because that's such a good fucking fear.
Yeah, they should have
really exploit. Oh yeah, for sure.
Because they did it, obviously, as you were saying, underwater, where they had that feeling of claustrophobia and being trapped in a small space
and they
underwater.
Did a really good job, too.
That was a kind of a miss for this movie that they should have kind of played that up a little.
But that's not Peter Weller's issue. That wasn't his... They didn't pay him to fucking make that happen, so don't blame him.
Plus, I don't know if I was interpreting this wrong, but at the very beginning of the movie, when they're having the suit failure, and Peter Weller is like, I don't know about the suits, but I'm getting all the readings are okay on your suit.
That's
Remember that?
Yeah.
But there's all these alarms going off and red flashing lights, and it's like...
This says it's fine, despite the...
I know, he's like, the screen says it's fine, but it's like, dude, there's all these alarms going off and stuff. It's like, clearly...
Well, I mean, that also... It also kind of speaks to the fact that the dude's a geologist.
Yeah.
And so he's only taught to react to what the display, the computer display is telling him.
Yeah.
So if the computer display is telling him, don't press any buttons, everything's cool, even though like things are going... I mean, I only say that because I feel like that's how my work is, where it's like, I don't know what to tell you. My fucking like system says it's fine. And people are like, no, this is fucking on fire. I'm like, no. So I'm on the Peter Weller side on this one as well.
Yeah. And it was really Doc's responsibility, even though
but how?
What he was gonna do.
Yeah, like somehow he was gonna go swim out and like fucking fix the suit or something. I don't know.
They needed like an IT person.
Or I guess what he could have done was troubleshoot the suit that somehow he was trained to do, but not anybody else.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Whatever.
I like Doc too.
Yeah, Doc was cool. Richard Crenna. I don't know what he's from, but I know I've seen him in a lot of stuff.
I know, same. T, can we look him up? What else is he being in?
Richard Crenna. I think he's a TV guy too. But see, where are we in the story? We kind of... Oh, he's Rambo.
He was in Rambo.
He's like the guy who's like, I know Rambo from Vietnam, and he was the one who kind of talks.
I really want to watch Rambo now.
That's right. I forgot that.
Did you watch the new Rambo? Wasn't that fucking amazing?
The brand new one?
Yeah, the one where he goes to Mexico to kill everybody.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it. No.
I mean, it's not Rambo good, but it's like additional Rambo good. You know what I mean? Well,
it's good by today's action
fatalistic feeling throughout the whole movie because like the whole movie starts like life is shit, and then like he's got this housekeeper who, by the way, is a really awesome, amazing, accomplished Mexican actress. You know, like also has that mood like life is shit, and then they got this teenage like he's like an adopted daughter, right?
Yeah.
And like that's like their only like little like joy in life is like seeing this girl grow up, and she's awesome and wonderful and smart. And then she goes to Mexico and then she gets trafficked and shit. And then like the housekeeper like just fucking turns on like the fucking like the acting chops and you gotta go do this and save her.
Save her, Rambo.
And so he goes down there and he kills like an entire cartel. It's pretty fucking rad. Oh no, and then they come back up to kill him
Yeah.
in the U.S. and then he kills him there too. It's so good. But it's also doesn't have the same feelings of like, you know.
I did, real quick on the Rambo tangent, I did see the one, though, where he helps the, like, Christian missionaries in, like, Asian country. It's, like, the one before this or two before this. And the gore in that movie is pretty outstanding.
Oh.
That's where he has, like, the giant machine gun, and people just like disappear in a cloud of blood. It's like they disintegrate when they get hit. It's pretty.
I didn't know guns like that existed.
It's pretty crazy.
That's amazing.
And like big goopy like blood packs. You know, not like CGI blood, but.
Well, what was it?
I think that was the
franchise
Last Blood
that I'm forgetting about
for
that he did
Rambo.
other movies in.
Rocky.
Okay, so and even like the
We're totally going on.
I know, but you know, whatever. We're having a good time. This is only going to take like 10 seconds.
Just a quick digression.
I also enjoyed the extra Rockies. But Sylvester Stallone was just fucking fantastic, and I love him very much.
Also, and just because we have to keep on the digression, I just heard that. Sylvester Stallone did a director's re-edit of Rocky 3, which we were just talking about, which is kind of considered to be one of the goofier Rocky movies. It's the Russia one.
Yeah.
And apparently he did a re-edit of it that makes it serious and not goofy.
Whoa.
And apparently it's like really good.
Did you guys know that Dolph Lundgren is apparently a brainiac?
Is he really?
Yeah, like he's got all these fucking degrees and like, you know, sciences and math degrees. It's pretty cool. Dolph. He should have been an astronaut.
He was He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
All
right,
okay, so back to Leviathan. Hey, it's an 80s. It's an
80s thing. I like this a lot.
80s
all right,
movies.
So we're up to the dog getting eaten up by GP, the butler from Pretty Woman, who had a face in his hand, which incidentally looks like the logo from the Santa Cruz skate.
No, he wasn't the butler. He was the guy that worked at the clothing store.
No, he didn't work at the clothing store. He worked at the hotel. I've watched this movie so many times.
He was at the concierge at the hotel. Right. Yeah, okay.
And then, like, she was like, I was trying to go, you know, buy this clothes, and, like, I had all this money that wouldn't take it. And he was like, I got you. And then he sent her.
He helps her out.
Yeah, he helps her out. It's the that's 90s, actually.
yeah. But that's the guy. Yeah, that's the guy.
And then, like, he runs the hotel. He's like the hotel manager, actually. Okay. He's not the concierge.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, go on. I interrupted.
I forgot what I was
another digression. Little Pretty Women.
Oh, Pretty Women.
But he was
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Women.
Not Little Women.
Not Little Women. Which
is also
Winona Ryder and Little... No, I'm just kidding. We won't go down.
Okay, we're good. Okay, we were talking about the hand, which then got me diverted to the Santa Cruz skate shop that has the same logo.
Yeah, there's a
That's
skate
where they
company.
Stole it from.
A skate company logo that is that hand with the mouth in it.
Except it's not sharp, it's like flat teeth, but then like also it's screaming.
And there were times when the eel creature and the hand, it sort of looked like it had lipstick on its mouth, which kind of made it look sort of adorable.
Adorable. That was another way it looked adorable. You can't have something with like a flat, round nose because it'll immediately look adorable.
And they made a point of having some cool, unusual creatures, but then I feel like there were some lazy creatures, which were kind of the eel ones, where it's just like a tentacle with a mouth on it.
I never saw one of those guys actually get somebody.
Yeah, totally.
No.
Who got anyone? Did anyone? Did anybody get got by the creatures?
Okay, so the doctor got caught by the hand with the face with the mouth in it. GP got caught by being scratched by the amalgam monster.
Infected, basically.
And that is it.
And then are we at the point where we start seeing the fish monster?
Yes. So at this point, now we got a full-on monster walking around, and there's that great scene that at first I didn't believe, and it's not a great scene. I don't know why. I know why I said that. I'm drunk. So anyways, so Ernie Hudson has a scene where they're running through the corridors, him and Buckaroo, and they see the monster in the distance down one of the fucking corridors, and he was like, was that dog? I could have sworn I saw a dog. Because at this point, the monster's doing this trick where it shows you a face on its shoulder of your friends, which is a thing. And he was like, I saw Doc. And I'm like, first of all, let's be real clear right now. Doc is dead. If you see him, you should run.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point in the story...
But he doesn't know that, actually, does he?
Well, they knew there was a monster around.
Yeah.
And they knew Doc was dead. And so him sort of being like, oh, maybe Doc is alive. It's like, no, you know he's not alive. Like, why would you think that he might be alive? There's no way.
There's no fucking way.
He's definitely dead. And there's a monster.
They could have played up a little bit more the psychological terror of seeing your friend's face on a monster's body. Although they tried, but somehow it wasn't landing. It was just so, like, it was more gross than psychologically trying, you know?
And they had to do,
they made him talk. If they made the face talk, maybe that would have been a little fucking crazy.
And they had to do big close-ups of the face to show you it. You know, it was like they got right up on it. You didn't really see the monster with, like, faces and things all coming out.
I feel we should look up who was directly in charge of the design of the monster at this dude's company and send them a sad, nasty letter that I'm sure he's gotten many times over the years.
Well, I think the downfall, like what I think probably a lot of people don't like, is that like once you get to the final monster,
he's not that scary.
It's just kind of a guy in a fish monster costume.
Yeah, with like big teeth, which is scary, but it's they also go with the narrow sort of piranha face.
Yeah.
Versus, and well, the thing I don't want to be too critical because these people are more artistic than I am. These people are better at their job than I am at my job. So, like,
well, it's primarily just because it's like it's less practical effects and more of a bodysuit with modifiers, so to speak.
Some of the background and some of these special effects. For me, all I can say is how I reacted to the master, which was like.
It's literally a fish head.
Yeah.
And he's got fish spine, like fin that goes down his back.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of similar to the humanoids from the deep
except
creatures.
For the wide
a little bit,
them, yeah.
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine if it was rapey?
Yeah, and less rapey.
Well, I mean, you know, if it yeah,
that was like the only way it didn't reproduce.
Well, it was partially six-pack, so you know.
Six-pack, so it should have acquired
some of its like
characteristics from him. Exactly. Although we only got the leg, so maybe it was the woman's leg and not his leg.
There you go. The shapely leg.
We're like making the movie make more sense.
We're making a sequel right now as we speak. So, you know, okay, so
third act.
Third act is the defeat monster. Well, you know what I really liked in the movie was when the doctor, he understands the situation they're in, and he releases the escape pods.
Oh, yeah,
That was neat as fuck. I was like, oh, that's such a tragic but heroic thing to do where it's like, you know you're fucked. Well, and I guess ultimately they weren't fucked because they were able to make it out of there, but... Yeah. But it's like he made a decision to say, there's no coming back from this. We should save mankind. Yeah. And that's always pretty cool when people do that.
And they kind of seem to be setting him up to have a dark, like you were saying, kind of a dark.
So
like there might be something shady or like he might be bad. But he turns out to actually be pretty much a good guy.
Well, he was set up for a redemption arc like that, you know?
But that's also kind of a ripoff of The Thing, where the doctor... It's also the doctor character in that movie realizes that they're screwed and he destroys the radio so that they can't radio for help in that movie. And it's kind of the same idea. Yeah. I think they probably lifted it from...
They lifted a lot of shit.
But it was cool. I mean,
everybody does it, so why not?
But ultimately it didn't matter that he got rid of the escape pods
because they were like, clearly swim to the surface somehow. Yeah. It's like, why were you fucking with us? Just swim to the fucking top.
And I hate to nitpick again. This is like a complete nitpick, but it's like those suits are designed for pressurizing you to work at the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
They're not designed to go up. And they do at least show a thing where it says like compression.
Yeah.
But it's like would a corporation really design their suits to decompress
They'd
and
be
go
too
to the
expensive.
surface when they're really only designed to be used at the bottom of the
Mhm.
ocean? That they would have said, "Oh, you don't need to have that
Fuck
feature
them. No, you don't need that.
in the suit because
When
they're
you
never
coming up
gonna."
in the suit, use a fucking bubble.
Exactly. You just use the escape pod. So, but whatever. You know, that's not a big deal. But it occurred to me when they were doing that, I was like, that's a little bit. But you know, whatever.
Whatevs. We'll let that one go.
And it kind of, I don't know, it does kind of degenerate a bit into just kind of the monster is sort of not chasing.
Yeah, I really didn't enjoy the last scene where, once they make it to the top, and yeah, okay, so they're fucking with your sense of, okay, everything's fine now, we're at the very top, we made it, we're safe, and yes, I did think, like, okay, helicopter, swoop in, rescue the dudes, and we're good. And then and everybody knows, of course, that monster's gonna come do one last hit. But it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel satisfying to see this monster that kind of looked like a shrimp, like a very overgrown shrimp when it came up to the surface. Yeah, it looked like a fucking rock monster.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, I guess. And then it got fucking Hudson, and I was like, no, you leave that Ghostbuster alone. I would have rather he made it and the girl not made it.
I know.
Which I know sounds a little rough, but, you know, I've got different loves for Buckaroo and Ghostbusters.
Well, they completely rip off the end of Jaws, where, you know, the main character puts the, whatever it is, a tank of air into the Jaws' mouth. And then he says, like, say cheese or something, because he's looking at through the rifle scope and he shoots it and blows up Jaws. In this movie, they completely rip that off. He puts the flare, which is not an explosive, in case people don't know what a flare is. It's designed to make a bright fire on the end of it. It's not something that blows up. But anyways, that's okay. But he puts it
That's okay.
He puts it in the mouth of the creature, and then he says,
movie man,
like, say hi, and then it blows up. But it's like, the one-liner, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Say hi? What? But
they should have used those helicopter blades.
Oh, that would have been awesome. Chop them up with the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And not, again, I feel like it's not necessarily fair to completely, like, pick apart some of the things in this movie, but the Coast Guard being there searching for survivors doesn't make sense.
No.
Because the storm was fake, and we find out that they were reported dead by the corporation, because we didn't mention that.
We forgot that part where they got
Peter
screwed
Weller
over.
has random communications with the corporation, and
the doctor is able to communicate with some of... Yeah, it's the doctor, right? Who finds out.
He finds out, I think. So they find out that they were reported all dead.
Oh, I know. It was a GP who had invested in the stock and was getting updated.
Yeah,
That's
she checked the stock.
Okay.
That was actually pretty clever.
Yeah, I like that.
They cut the crew off from communication.
Yeah.
But she was able to sneak around by checking her stock information in the company.
Was it the astronaut or who was that? It doesn't matter.
I forget, yeah. But they find out that the entire crew was already reported dead by the corporation.
Like, dun, dun, dun.
So there would be no Coast Guard looking for them when they came to the surface. Because I was thinking when they came to the surface, I was like, oh, okay, like, you're out, but now you're just stuck in the middle of the ocean alone. Like, what are you going to do?
I have to mention one little tiny detail that I thought was so cute and really humanized a character, and is so fucking minor, you guys might have forgotten. But you know how at the very beginning of the movie, so we've got Buckaroo, like, you know, trying to make sure everybody, like, you know, is following his lead. He's not a manager, he's a geologist who was put in this position. And at one point, he's in his area, his apartment or whatever, his pod, and he's reading a How to Manage People book.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was adorable because, like, that's very, like, that really humanized the character.
Yeah.
That's something that, like, you know, anybody who's, like, works in a, you know, a team environment. Even if you're not the manager, you're like, how do I work with these people that are assholes? Kind of shit,
Yeah.
So I thought that was super cute. And it reminded me of Alligator, when you were talking about the lead in that movie was also humanized or they acknowledged his shortcomings or at least his insecurities because
Like
of his hair
thinning
loss.
hair and stuff.
Yeah. And so I thought, like, hey, that's the one thing that John said. So.
Yeah, where they kind of make a point of showing that he is not an 80s action hero, that he's just a regular guy.
Just a regular dude, man.
And he really doesn't do any action stuff, right? He pretty much just is...
Now that I think about it, I can't think of let's see, there's where they're trying to get rid of the melded body. There's a little bit of fight there, but he doesn't do much.
Yeah.
And then there's when they're running around the corridors and they get the girl astronaut Willie, they don't really do fighting there. They just run away, right?
Yeah.
I don't really think there's a lot of fighting in this movie, actually, now that I think about it.
Another funny thing that I have to point out, too, was in the middle of the movie, there's been some murders, and we've seen that Six-Pack is mutating in the hospital and everything, and things have pretty much gone horribly awry. And then the pretty astronaut woman is like, I'm going to go for a jog.
What the fuck?
And then she's like she's all kind of smiley and happy and goes for a jog. And I was just like, really? You're going to go for a jog? Like, shit's gone haywire.
Like I would want to protest about this, except for the fact that I am not an active person. So I don't know how their brains work. If they're like, this is intense, I really need this run. It's really going to center me. Like, I don't know how they fucking think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just wants to clear her mind.
If it were me,
and she's
I
on a
would have
very
definitely
strict
been
schedule.
infected immediately.
You gotta get
I
your
would have
workout
taken a
in.
drink out of that flask. See what else? I would have been hanging out with everybody way too late. So yeah, it's just I'm doomed in this scenario for sure. I can't swim.
Mm-hmm. But any time I
Of
see
the
a
what?
scene that
Oh, the
involves
stylist.
running, I just think of the stylist. I just think of the stylist, which is like, I've got something to
with
tell
that
you.
movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't run.
So tell me, there was a movie. I can't remember what the phobia was, but there is a woman who's trying to, absorb another woman she's obsessed with. She loves her. She's obsessed with her, and the woman's like a runner.
Yeah.
And she's like, let's be friends, let's be a runner. And then at the very end of the movie, when she's destroyed her life, and she's trying to talk to the woman because she doesn't know this lady's been doing that, she says, I don't run, and then kills her. It's very great, actually. It's
Totally.
That was for
nice.
telephobia,
So,
which was the fear of imperfection.
good job.
All right, what else is left? Let's see. We talked about the ending. We talked about the rock crab.
Yeah,
Rock
it's
lobster?
just not. Its final form is
Rock
and
lobster?
when it pops out of the water at the end.
Rock
it's just
rock
not
lobster.
Intimidating at all.
Intimidating or scary.
All I keep thinking is like, punch it, kick it. Like, I don't feel any terror. I just feel like violence every time I see this monster. I was like, hurt it, kill it, everybody at once. I don't know.
But it is a good overall.
I
movie.
love the movie.
It is
I mean,
fun.
I know we just spent an hour, 17 minutes, and 45 seconds talking shit about it, but I really enjoyed the movie. I really like the vaguely futuristic setting. I loved Meg Foster. It's Meg Foster with the icy blue eyes.
Oh yeah.
She's fucking great. I loved the entire cast. I even liked the pacing of the movie, the development of the monster.
Yeah.
The monster was crap, but that happens a lot in movies. So
Yeah.
whatevs. And then considering what it was up against in terms of competition with other movies, there was no way this movie was going to get a good rating based on the fact that it stole so much from Alien, The Thing, Jaws, at 89 already,
And like you were saying, T, I think this probably part of the reason the movie didn't do well is because it's The Thing and Alien, underwater, and I think probably Yeah, it's like stuff that you've already seen before in other movies that did it better. And so it ends up just kind of being like, eh. But I swear, I've seen more recently people mentioning this movie and talking about this movie.
Really?
And it feels like it has kind of a cult following that's developed.
Because I feel like, I missed it my first time through the 80s. Since I was all of 8 when this movie came out. But looking back now at movies that you haven't watched, that are, well, you try to watch all the big ones, even though I haven't seen The Abyss, and you see how horrified you guys were when I told you that. But, you go back and these are the good movies that I can watch. It's really nice to go back and find one that's not that talked about, that has an amazing cast. Yeah. And the plot, the storyline is really solid. I really enjoy it. I mean, you did bring up a couple of like plot holes for sure, but it's sci-fi. You're just gonna sweep on by those. It's the future. We figured out those plot holes in the future. So I enjoyed it a bunch. I thought it was really great. Yeah, the monster was disappointing, but there were so many different good things about it that I didn't really care that much.
Yeah, like I'd still give it a passing grade. I just think the third act is primarily what weighs the movie down more so than just the way that it
kind of like
pulls from other things that we have
it
already
doesn't
seen.
know. It feels like the third act doesn't know what they want to do. Like on one hand, it feels like there should have been this kind of action, all craziness, people running around doing more action, and then they kind of didn't do that, but then at the same time, I don't know, like the pressure and the drama, like the time scale, like we have to get out of here to get rescued, that didn't quite work.
I feel like Underwater, the movie, really, it's basically a remake, and it was remade much better.
Yeah, it is. I know, it's kind of crazy how much Underwater is the same as this story.
And then on top of it, it's like, not only do we make it better, here's Cthulhu. It's really, it really emphasizes how good that movie is, Underwater. Although, not to take away from Leviathan, because it didn't know it was competing with something 40 years later or 30 years later. And but I love that everything that I had an objection with in Leviathan was resolved in Underwater. Yeah. Like the underwater scenes that look kind of fake, not in Underwater. They look fucking fantastic. The what else? The monsters in Underwater are so much better. And I didn't mind the characters too much in Underwater, but I do believe I like the cast better in Leviathan.
Yeah.
But I do believe that Kristen Stewart did a really good job in Underwater.
Yeah. Well, they had that same character, like the six-pack character in Underwater. What's his name?
He wasn't that bad, though.
Well, he was. I feel like his role got cut down because of his controversies, which happened right at the same time that movie got made or came out. I mean,
who was it again? I'm forgetting. I'm blanking.
Is it TJ?
Oh yeah, like dude from Silicon Valley.
Yeah, he had right at the time that movie came out. He had all those controversies. And I suspect they chopped his role down in that movie.
That's a pretty good assumption.
But he was kind of that same character, the comedy.
Yeah, the fuck up comedy routine dude, yeah.
And they kind of have...
Mm-hmm. So really, Leviathan just needed the Optimus Prime dialogue towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, like
the Underwater had.
The sacrifice.
Right before she blows Cthulhu.
Yeah, the monologue. Definitely.
But there was no sacrifice because they made it.
Yeah, and they had a full-fledged happy ending.
And they got married, and they had babies, and they lived happily ever after.
And he punched out the corporate lady.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Knocked
that
her
was
out.
a very, look at this very justified violence.
I know, it's like...
And I was like, she
was a bad
was
character,
a
but
bad
still.
dude. But
still,
no.
And he's like... She's like, the one woman is like, how are you feeling? And then Peter Weller's like, I'm starting to feel a little better now after he punches her out.
Maybe if you pushed her into the water.
Yeah.
With the rock lobster. Go deal with that shit.
Excuse me.
That would have been milder, like, like pushed her into the water would have been a little better, I think.
But really,
Because when you're like, punching, you're like, it's a little abrasive. But also, she did try to kill them.
Yeah, she put.
So there was a lot of justification behind that violence.
Yeah.
But still, you don't want to approve
But it's
violence.
done in such a casual comedy way.
It is in a comedic way where it's like, weird. No.
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
But
1989.
Still, but no, this movie though, like they didn't realize, like they weren't really thinking through the creature they had created, because really at the end of that, it shouldn't have been a happy ending, because as we're mentioning, that thing is
fucking
still out there,
a larger portion of itself.
Well, and if it's kind of like the thing where you only need to be scratched, you only need to have a few cells of it put in you to turn, then even blowing up the creature at the end where they put the thing in its mouth and blew it up, all that material, even if it kills the creature, all that material could still infect other
But even
creatures.
if we call that dead, the one that got released at the very bottom of the ocean,
yeah.
I mean, that fucker is just eating guppies all fucking day long and just getting to be the size of, like, the Pacific garbage patch. And that shit's just going to come for the continental United States any minute now.
Yep.
Any minute now.
This movie the sequel to this movie could be Humanoids from the Deep.
Where they rape Mendocino?
And then all because of Six Pack, because he's
so rapey.
That's why the creatures in Humanoids from the Deep are rapey, because they are spawned from Six Pack's creature.
And that dude was an asshole.
It's all part of the Leviathan cinematic universe.
Thank you.
Which will be coming out soon to compete with the Marvel universe.
Because we're all tired of fucking superheroes.
And also to compete with the Universal Dark Universe. Their shared universe.
Oh, is that coming out? I thought that died after the movie.
Oh, it died.
Yeah,
it died
which just fails multiple times.
It's so sad. I was looking forward to it.
It totally died.
Money, but I was like, that's a good idea. Oh.
The Universal Dark Universe, they tried to do it with Benicio del Toro werewolf,
and he's amazing,
failed.
Benicio.
And they tried to do it with Dracula.
Do you have any beer left?
No.
Oh, all right.
With Dracula, and it failed. And they tried to do it with, what was the other one? There I think 3 attempts at that cinematic universe.
That sucked, because that's a good idea. That's just not, somehow they didn't get it right. And I'm not criticizing the creators, because I don't know how to make it right, but that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, just to nerd out for a second, technically the Universal monster movies are the first, I'm pretty sure are the first shared universe.
Shared universe. Oh, that's right, you were saying that before. Yeah.
Where they crossed over with each other back in the 1940s and 30s or whatever. So technically they kind of did it first, but whatever. But yeah, the Leviathan shared universe will be the back universe will be pretty awesome. We can figure out how to get. We're not really watching Deep Star 6 though, so
maybe we can figure it out later.
Yeah, we'll
I don't know.
Add that in later somewhere or something.
Keep reaching for my empty glass.
I kind of want to. I do want to rewatch Deep Star 6 because I'm pretty sure I've seen it, and I'm pretty sure it also has a monster that looks like a lobster in it. I think, if I remember right.
Yeah. Turns out
they all head to Japan to be monster
turns
soup.
Out I don't care.
Because there's a giant lobster
I will
there.
eat lobster, but turns out I like butter.
Yeah,
salted butter with lemon. That's the only part. The texture's cool, but it's like I could get the same shit out
understandable.
of plump marshmallow or some shit.
Some fake crab.
Mm-hmm.
Those imitation crab.
Well, we've been going on for a good old long time now.
Wow.
Hour and 28 minutes and 19 seconds. I feel like we've defeated the movie.
Longer than the movie.
Yeah, we've defeated the movie.
That was like an hour and 20 something movie. It was shorter, on the shorter side.
But we did talk about Rambo a lot. Yeah. So
it was. That's just 80s nostalgia at its finest. But looking ahead, okay, this is a wrap up of aquaphobia. So we got a new phobia starting in August, and we're going to be doing the fear of wealth, which is plutophobia. Now, we did not sit down to discuss what our next selection is going to be, but obviously we'll get that situated and we'll have our full schedule posted on social media
the ones that you said
in the coming days.
It wasn't Cronenberg. I was like, well, then let's fucking do it.
Society. That's definitely a sneak preview.
Okay. Cool, absolutely.
Cool. I'll be in Tahoe next week too, so
yeah, well, we'll do that one first.
Beautiful Tahoe.
Nice. Oh, Society 89.
That's another 1989.
Yeah, the late 80s were good for horror movies. The 86 through 90. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that came out during that time that's really good.
Yeah. I really like her new setup with the couch. Mm-hmm. I think it's better than couch and chair. I think this is more comfortable.
Nice. Definitely.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. So with that being said, we are going to wrap things up here tonight on Hand with Scare. Thank you so much for tuning in for our wrap-up of Aquaphobia. This has been episode number 70, talking all about Leviathan and a bunch of 80s action movies on our tangents. And we'll see you guys back next week as we kick off our new phobia and talk society and the body horror elements of the flesh orgy.